Welcome to the Quality of Life podcast, where we explore how hospice and palliative care may enhance quality of life for patients living with a serious illness. Here is your host, hospice and palliative care leader and educator, Dr. Millicent Burke-Sinclair.
Hello and welcome to the Quality of Life podcast. I'm here today with Nancy Bouvet, whose husband was served by 4 seasons and is now a volunteer and former board member. Thank you so much for being here today, Nancy. You were involved in hospice before your husband, Pierre, needed hospice. I'd love if you could share with listeners about what inspired you to be involved with hospice to start with.
Actually, it goes a long way back. I have to say I'm in my 80s, so you'll understand the numbers. Back in 1978, I'd been in healthcare. I had a career going, and I had the opportunity to do a life, death, and transition workshop with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And those of you who've been around the end-of-life movement realize that that was a long time ago. And she was one of the original underwriters, if you will, of a lot of the hospice movement. So that was a life-changing event for me. I took a kind of a right turn and became more focused on end-of-life healthcare. And then in 1986, I had the opportunity when I was living in Hawaii to start a community hospice. And so several friends and I worked with the community, and we established a hospice, which is still doing very well there today. So hospice was a big part of my life. And then I came to 4 Seasons about 20 years ago, and I've been involved as a volunteer and a board member.
We are so incredibly thankful. So could you share with us what it was like to experience care on the receiving end when your husband Pierre needed both palliative and hospice care? How did that feel? What was your experience like?
Well, I knew on an intellectual side about what
Yes.
hospice was all about. But when Pierre had a diagnosis that we knew was going to change our lives, the ending of his life and our life, my life, I knew that I was going to need an extra layer of support, and I knew exactly where to go. So we enrolled in the palliative care program. And this provided a place to call and get the answers. And I knew that I always had someone on the phone 24 hours a day if I needed them. So we were in the palliative care program for a year. And then we transitioned into hospice care. But they just enabled me to do what I could not have done without them there. They were great advisors. One of our goals was to, when we first came into palliative care, we were trying to make a trip to Bermuda to visit our daughter and her family over the holidays. And they kind of propped us up and got us organized, and we were able to do that. And everybody in the family was elated that we were there, and we were very grateful. One of my primary things that I liked about being in palliative care was that they were so respectful to the family.
Oh, I love that.
And our choices.
Yes.
And it wasn't the medical model.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And for our listeners, what would you say was important to you and Pierre about the care that he received?
I think having choices was important. I think he very much wanted to be at home. He was a very fairly reserved European gentleman who didn't like the idea of being in an institution of any kind. And I think we always felt like we were in charge with the palliative care and the hospice team. They asked us always what we wanted. There was medical guidance and assistance, but it wasn't all about the pills or the symptoms or the doctoring. It was about life choices and presenting and creating opportunities. And we have a very big extended family. How would we fit them all in? So they very much wanted to make that happen for us, and they did.
So, you were just answering the next question that I had thought about is how 4 Seasons met those needs. And one of the things that I heard you say was you felt like you had choices, and you both felt like you were able to be in charge more than, say, if you were at a location outside of your home. And that you felt like not only was Pierre in focus, but so were you and other family members who wanted to be a part. Was there anything else that you would like to share about how 4 Seasons supported you and Pierre or in meeting those needs?
I think one of the things that was so important for us was that it enabled me to be a wife, not just a caregiver. And my focus could be on my relationship with him And the other thing I would share is the reason that we were able to keep him at home, part of the reason, is we had a grandson, a grown-up grandson, come to visit from Hong Kong to do his last week or two with his grandfather. And he was there about a week, and he came to me and he said, Nana, he said, I'm just going to stay.
Oh,
I've arranged with work. I'm going to stay and see this through with
oh.
you. And we knew that, we were walking down the last path. So that's what enabled me to, keep him at home. We had wonderful nurses and nurses' aides that came in and by now we're in hospice care,
Yes.
came in from the hospice side, and all of us did it together, if you will. We
That's
rolled his
beautiful.
bed from the bedroom to the living room to the kitchen. He did
Oh.
cooking classes for the grandkids. It was well done. And that's what he would say. He wrote a book called A Life Well Lived. And it was all thanks to hospice and palliative care. So
I love, though, how you shared that his care was important not only to him and to you, but to your family. And there are some people who don't have extended family, but then there's people who do. And at Four Seasons, we make sure to find out what's most important to each patient and their loved ones. And it sounds like it was important that your family and extended family were able to be a part in a meaningful way.
yeah, absolutely. And I've been a volunteer at Elizabeth House, so I knew what a good option that was. But for us, it was a good option to be able to keep him at home. That was our first choice, and they enabled us to have that first choice.
Well, and I love that you mentioned that too, because some may say, I don't have additional support in the home or, wherever someone calls home. I would just encourage you to know that hospice can come to you wherever you call home. And that's a really beautiful collaboration between those most involved individuals as well as hospice. And so now that you've experienced hospice care, not only by starting and leading, experiencing it with Pierre, um, what would you say to someone about palliative and hospice care since you have experienced it in multiple ways?
I think I would say partly what you just said, and I would also stress that it's a valuable service for the family. And most people don't spend any time thinking about end-of-life care or the end-of-life path until they actually need it. I would encourage people to think about what's going to happen with your parents. Think about what's going to happen with your siblings, because you need to get all these things figured out before you're actually in that space. And I think also that being in a hospice program, which is not specifically a medical model, they reframe hope. And it helps you have hope for every day. And hope changes and your goals change every day. So it reframes hope rather than giving up hope.
One thing that I love so much about what you said is oftentimes we think about hospice as an opportunity to provide help and hope. And if a listener is saying help and hope, I mean, maybe I'm with you on the help, but the hope, no, because we're at the end. I'd ask you just to think about it in a little different way. So, as Nancy was sharing, hospice helped support both Nancy and Pierre as well as extended family. And so, one of the things that I think is so important for us to think about is if we do start thinking about decisions toward the latter part of life, we want to think about how can we set our family and our loved ones up for success as well? How might we be able to give them some extra comfort and extra confidence? And just by having hospice, there's a phone number they can call 24/7. There's support that they can have access to when they need it most. And I think that's really important because we don't want anyone throughout the community to ever feel like they're facing something like an end of life or a serious illness need alone. And in fact, that's the beautiful part of hospice and palliative care is that you don't have to face a serious illness or end of life alone. The other thing that I think about too is by thinking about it early, as you said, Nancy, people can start considering additional support that may be available. And so at Four Seasons, we have grief support that's available. And that can be incredibly beneficial while someone is nearing the end as well as have passed on. At Four Seasons, we also provide grief support for people who have lost a loved one in the community. And so it doesn't have to be someone necessarily that we've even served with in hospice and palliative care. And I think that that's also important too, as you're thinking that well, I'm glad to hear this now, but I wish I would have known 2 months ago because my loved one didn't have the benefit. That's okay. We still have grief support that can help.
Grieving doesn't start with the death. Grieving
No.
starts
Before.
when you get the diagnosis, because life is going to change.
Yes.
You know that all the things that you had hoped to do,
Yes.
you may not get to do. But I encourage people to reach out and get guidance for grieving, if you will, if that's happening for you before the end, because it can affect the quality of life, I think.
So I wonder, Nancy, if there's anything that you would like to share with listeners, because as they're listening, they could be hesitant to call to find out more about care.
I just think knowing about hospice and palliative care is part of life's toolkit, and you may not need it for years, but you can not only need it yourself, people in your life are going to need it, and you can share and become knowledgeable. It's just another piece of education, and it's something that this community is rich with. We have so many resources, and for people to just be proactive and do it ahead. There's no commitment. You can call, someone will come to you. You can come in and talk to somebody at Four Seasons. There's so many options, but I think it's a very valuable tool to have.
Yes. One of the things that you said that I think is so important for listeners to know is it's your choice to receive the care that you believe that you need or that perhaps your provider has shared with you as an option. And so if you make the decision to reach out and you change your mind at a later date once you're on service, that's okay. And so I do think that's important for listeners to hear is we want to be able to co-create the most meaningful care experience with you as possible. But at the end of the day, it is your choice. And we're here to listen and honor your choices and bring comfort and compassion and confidence along the way. And so truly, we do ask what's most important to you. We listen, and then we co-create together a good, solid care plan. And that care plan can change based upon your needs and your desires. So, Nancy, as we're ending our time, would there be anything else you'd like to leave listeners with?
I think one thing I would share with people is a great way to learn about Four Seasons and to do what I was just talking about and you were talking about is take advantage of the volunteer opportunities. Get to know the organization, get to know the people. A lot of people will say, I couldn't sit by the bedside. Well, we have at least 20 other opportunities for you. You can be a volunteer at the home store. You can be a volunteer to visit in facilities. You can be a cookie baker. There's so many things that volunteers can do. And one of the things that's best about all that is people who work in the end-of-life space are really, really special, good people. And it's great to be able to get to know them. So I would just try to gain some knowledge that way about what it's like to be a volunteer and figure out what you're going to do with your end-of-life journey.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's such a wise way to suggest someone even start to feel comfortable with the organization that they might be considering receiving care for, because we need volunteers. Our tremendous employees do an amazing job with providing high quality care. But we need volunteers to help support that as well. And volunteers are key in that high care quality provision. And so I think that having our employees and our volunteers come together, it's really beautiful, the trusted care that is made possible. And I love that you shared that. And it can also provide some clarity as well as familiarity within your own self for the time that you might need or a loved one that may have a need. And we just encourage you to reach out to Four Seasons. You can go onto our website. You can give us a call. We want you to feel well informed of your choices and be able to access the care that you or someone may need when you need it most. Nancy, I just want to express gratitude to you for allowing us to be a part of your life. And I think that when you think about loved ones being served, you've got to have confidence and trust that they're going to be receiving good quality care. And you don't always know it going in. And so I'm thankful that you've shared about the positive experience, but I'm also very thankful that you allowed us to provide care as well as decided your own self that, hey, I want to be a part of extending care through volunteering and serving as a board member and in all the ways that you do. So just want to say thank you. For more information about our services, please visit us at fourseasonscare.org. Nancy, thank you so much for your time.
I'm happy to have the opportunity to share.
The Quality of Life podcast is produced by Four Seasons, the care you trust, providing award-winning quality hospice and palliative care to Western North Carolina. For more information, visit fourseasonscare.org or call 866-466-9734.